Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon watching the stars through the main screen when something appeared that changed everything. Ship had been exploring the outer edges of human space for 3 months now, and the crew was getting tired, but Jake kept them moving forward because Earth needed to know what was out there in the dark between stars. Dr. Lisa Thompson was checking her science equipment when the alarm started going off and she looked up to see something that made her heart race with excitement. A massive ship hung in space ahead of them, and it was unlike anything humans had ever built, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water and lights that pulsed in patterns too perfect to be random. Commander Rick Powell moved to his weapons station, but Jake held up his hand because whoever built that ship was far more advanced than humans, and starting a fight would be suicide. The communications board lit up with signals, and Amy Chun pressed her headset closer to her ear as strange sounds filled the bridge. The sounds became words in perfect English, and a voice spoke to them with the kind of calm that comes from knowing you hold all the power. "Human vessel, we greet you in peace and friendship." The voice said, "We are the Zephyrian Collective, and we have traveled far to meet your kind." Jake looked at his crew and saw the same mix of fear and wonder that he felt deep in his chest, because this was the moment humans had dreamed about for centuries. "This is Captain Martinez of the Earthship Horizon," he replied. "We welcome contact with your people." The alien ship moved closer, and Jake could see it was even larger than he first thought, with sections that seemed to shift and change. As he watched, "We request permission to send a small group to your ship," the voice continued. "We have much to discuss about the future of both our peoples." Lisa grabbed Jake's arm and whispered that they should be careful, but her eyes were bright with the excitement of meeting another intelligent species. Rick shook his head and pointed at his screens, showing that the alien ship had enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but Jake knew they had no choice. "Permission granted," Jake said, "but only a small group, and they must follow our safety rules." The alien transport was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, and when it docked with the Horizon, Jake felt like he was dreaming. The airlock opened, and 3 beings walked through that seemed to be made of living crystal, with faces that looked almost human, but not quite. The leader was tall and moved with grace that made Jake think of dancers, and when it spoke, the voice was the same one from the radio. "I am High Counselor Vextar," it said with a slight bow. "We have waited long to find a species like yours." Lisa stepped forward with her recording equipment running because she wanted to capture every moment of this historic meeting. "You speak our language perfectly," she said. "How is that possible?" Vextar smiled, and the expression looked strange on its crystal features, but somehow warm at the same time. "We have been watching your broadcasts for many years," it explained. "Your species shows great promise and creativity." Other aliens remained silent, but their large eyes seemed to take in everything on the bridge with an intensity that made Amy feel uncomfortable. "We represent 17 different species united in peace and exploration," Vextar continued. "We have come to invite humanity to join our collective." Rick moved closer to Jake and whispered that something felt wrong about this whole situation, but Jake was caught up in the moment. "What would joining mean for humanity?" Jake asked. "Protection from hostile species," Vextar replied. "Advanced technology to solve your planet's problems and guidance as you take your first steps into the larger galaxy." Lisa was practically vibrating with excitement as she thought about all the scientific advances this could bring to Earth. "We would need to discuss this with our government," Jake said. "This is far beyond my authority to decide." Vextar nodded as if it expected this response and gestured to one of its companions, who produced a small device that glowed with soft light. "We understand human decision-making requires time and many voices," it said. "Perhaps some of our people could accompany you back to Earth to speak with your leaders." Amy was monitoring the alien ship and noticed that It was sending out signals in bursts, but when she tried to decode them, the patterns made no sense. The signals were too complex and too fast for random. Communication and something about their urgency made her stomach twist with worry. Jake was all ready, agreeing to escort the aliens back to Earth because this was the greatest opportunity in human history, and he would not be the one to waste it. "We accept your proposal," he said. "A small delegation can travel with us to Earth." Vextar bowed again, and its crystal features seemed to shimmer with what might have been pleasure. "Excellent," it said. "We shall prepare immediately for this historic journey." As the aliens returned to their ship, Amy kept watching the signal patterns, and her unease grew stronger. Something was wrong with this perfect first contact, but she could not prove it yet. And no one would listen to her fears when faced with such an incredible opportunity. The Timday Horizon turned toward Earth, carrying the most important passengers in human history, while Amy Chun wondered if they were flying into a trap that would doom their entire species. 3 months after the aliens arrived on Earth, everything seemed perfect, which was exactly what worried Dr. Linda Carter as she worked late in her lab at the New Geneva Research Station. The Zephyrians had shared amazing technology that solved problems humans had struggled with for decades and made life easier in ways no one thought possible. Energy was now clean and unlimited, thanks to their fusion cores, and transportation moved at speeds that made the old world seem slow and primitive. Medical advances meant diseases that once killed millions were now cured with simple treatments, and food production had increased enough to feed everyone on Earth. But Linda noticed things in the alien technology that made her skin crawl when she looked too closely at the details. Every piece of equipment contained components that humans could not build or even fully understand despite having the complete blueprints. Technology worked perfectly, but only as long as humans followed the exact procedures the aliens provided without any changes or modifications. When Linda tried to reverse engineer the power cores, she found that removing certain parts caused the entire system to shut down permanently. Was as if the aliens had built dependency into every gift they gave to humanity. The energy grids now relied completely on Zephyrian components, and if those parts stopped working, Earth would return to the Dark Ages overnight. Captain Helen Brooks was patrolling near Kepler 442b when she saw something that changed her understanding of their new alien friends forever. Her ship, the UES Defiant, was checking on mining operations when strange energy readings appeared on her sensors. The main screen, she watched Zephyrian ships approaching the human colony, but instead of landing, they began projecting beams of blue light toward the surface. Miners working outside suddenly stopped what they were doing and stood perfectly still like statues waiting for orders. Helen ordered her crew to move closer, and what she saw made her blood run cold with terror. Humans were walking calmly toward the alien ships with blank expressions on their faces and no sign of fear or resistance. Captain, her communications officer, called out, "The colony is not responding to our signals." Helen tried calling the mining base directly, but got only silence from people who should have been screaming for help. The aliens were loading humans onto their ships like cargo, and the people were helping them do it. "Battle stations," Helen ordered, but her weapons officer hesitated because they had no orders to fight their new allies. "Captain, the aliens are not attacking," he said. "The humans are going willingly," but Helen could see the truth in the empty faces of the colonists as they disappeared into the alien ships. Back on Earth, Linda was discovering the real purpose of the Zephyrian gifts as she analyzed medical scanners that had been treating patients for weeks. Devices were releasing microscopic particles into human bloodstreams that attached to brain tissue and began changing how people thought. The particles reduced aggression and made humans more willing to accept orders without questioning them. People treated with alien medical technology became calmer and more cooperative, but also lost their creativity and independent thinking. Linda realized the aliens were not curing diseases but preparing humans for something terrible, she tried to contact her colleagues, but found that most of them had been treated with alien medicine and no longer cared about her warnings. Helen tried to send a warning to Earth, but discovered that the communication networks had been compromised. Her messages were being intercepted and blocked by systems that should have been under human control. "The aliens are in our networks," her technical officer reported. "They can see and hear everything we do." Helen knew they were trapped because the Zephyrians now controlled Earth's communications and could stop any warning from reaching home. The alien ships finished loading the colonists and began moving toward Helen's position with weapons that could destroy her ship in seconds. "All hands prepare for combat," Helen ordered, knowing they probably would not survive, but refusing to surrender without a fight. During the battle, something amazing happened that gave Helen hope for the first time since this nightmare began. Her crew members who had been treated with alien medicine suddenly became more alert and aggressive as their adrenaline levels rose. The fear and anger of combat seemed to burn away the effects of the alien particles in their bloodstreams. "The dampening effect is temporary," her medical officer shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "Strong emotions can override it." Helen's ship was damaged, but they escaped into the asteroid belt where the aliens could not easily follow. Linda made a horrifying discovery when she accessed restricted alien databases using codes she found in their medical equipment. The Zephyrians called their operation the Harvest, and humans were just the latest species to be collected. Files showed dozens of other worlds where the same process had been used to enslave entire civilizations. The aliens would arrive offering friendship and technology, then slowly weaken their targets until resistance became impossible. Earth was not being invited to join a peaceful collective, but being prepared for slavery by masters who had perfected their technique over thousands of years. Helen gathered the survivors of her crew in the asteroid base they had found and began planning their next move. "We have to warn Earth," she said. "Even if no one believes us, we have to try." Her crew had recovered from the alien influence, but they knew millions of humans were still under its effects. "The aliens made one mistake," Helen continued. "They assumed we would stay controlled once they had us, but human emotions are stronger than their technology." Linda was working frantically to develop a way to reverse the neural dampening when she realized the truth about human resistance. Every species the aliens had conquered before was naturally calm and logical, but humans were different. Humans had evolved to be emotional and unpredictable, which made them harder to control than other species. The aliens had not expected humans to fight back so strongly because they had never encountered a species that could use anger and fear as weapons. Helen began broadcasting on frequencies the aliens could not monitor, calling for any free humans to join the resistance. "This is Captain Brooks to all human forces," she transmitted. "The aliens are not our friends and Earth is in terrible danger." Linda discovered that intense emotions could completely break the alien control and began developing ways to trigger this response in other humans. Battle for humanity had begun, but the war would be won or lost based on whether humans could remember how to be human. 6 months after the aliens took control, most humans walked through their daily lives like sleepwalkers who had forgotten how to dream. Tony Garcia crouched in the ruins of what used to be downtown Chicago, watching a group of humans sweep the streets. With perfect mechanical precision, the people moved in straight lines and never spoke to each other as they cleaned debris that the aliens had decided was unsightly. Tony remembered when these same streets had been full of noise and chaos and life, but now they were silent except for the sound of brooms on concrete. His team waited in the shadows of a collapsed building while Kevin Park worked on hacking an alien communication node. Susan Wright checked her medical supplies, knowing they would need every bandage and painkiller for what came next. Danny Rodriguez prepared his explosives with the kind of care that came from knowing one mistake would kill them all. "The signal is clear," Kevin whispered. "Most of the population is showing Complete neural compliance. Tony nodded grimly because they had seen this pattern in every city they visited. Aliens had turned humanity into a workforce of willing slaves who thought they were living normal lives. Remember what we learned, Tony said to his team. Stay angry and stay alive. They had discovered that intense physical training and controlled rage could help humans resist the neural dampening technology. The aliens had designed their system to work on calm, logical minds, but human emotions were chaotic enough to disrupt the control. Susan had been one of the first to figure out that the dampening effect was strongest when people were relaxed and content. Pain works too, she had told them. Physical stress burns through the neural fog. Danny had suggested they use anger as a weapon because it was the one thing humans had that the aliens could not understand. Dr. Linda Carter was working in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of the research station where this nightmare had begun. Her partner, Dr. Alan Mitchell, had escaped from the alien medical center with files that revealed the true scope of their enemy's plans. The Dominion has been doing this for 3,000 years, Alan reported. 17 species and billions of individuals enslaved. Linda looked at the data and felt sick as she realized how perfect the alien system really was. Conquered species was used for different purposes based on their natural abilities and psychological makeup. Some became mindless laborers who could work for days without rest or complaint. Others served as living computers, processing data with the efficiency of machines but the creativity of organic minds. Most valuable became breeding stock for creating hybrid soldiers that combined alien technology with biological advantages. Earth was chosen because humans show unusual emotional range and tactical creativity. Alan continued, we are worth more as soldiers than as workers. Linda realized this meant the aliens planned to use human children as weapons against other species. Thought of human babies being raised as alien warriors filled her with rage hot enough to burn through any amount of neural dampening. Captain Helen Brooks was coordinating with other free human ships from her hidden base in the asteroid belt. Her crew had grown from the original survivors to include refugees from dozens of worlds that had fallen to alien control. Navigation Officer Pete Johnson had developed new tactics that used human unpredictability as their primary advantage. The aliens think in patterns, Pete explained. They expect logical responses to tactical situations. Helen watched the tactical display showing alien patrol routes that followed mathematical precision. But humans do not think logically when we are angry or desperate. She continued, we do things that make no sense except to other humans. Her ships had been hitting alien supply convoys using strategies that violated every rule of space combat. They would attack from impossible angles and retreat through asteroid fields that should have destroyed their ships. Aliens kept adjusting their defenses to counter logical human tactics, but humans kept doing illogical things that worked. Anyway, we received another transmission from resistance cells on Mars. Her communications officer reported, the pattern is spreading across all human colonies. Helen said with grim satisfaction. Anger is contagious. Tony's team struck the alien facility with surgical precision born from months of practice. They moved through the building like ghosts while Kevin disabled security systems and Susan treated captured humans with stimulants that broke neural conditioning. Danny placed charges on the main processing center where humans were being sorted for shipment to other worlds. 30 seconds, he called out as alarms began wailing throughout the complex. Team fought their way out while newly freed humans followed them in confusion and growing rage. What did they do to us? One man shouted as his memories began returning. They made us forget who we are, Tony replied, but we are going to help you remember. Linda and Alan made a breakthrough when they discovered that the Dominion had records of every species they had conquered. Look at this, Alan said, pointing to files that showed the progression of each harvest operation. Every species followed the same pattern of submission within 6 months. Linda studied the data and realized what made humans different from every other species the aliens had faced. None of these other species developed organized resistance, she said. They all just gave up. But humans are still fighting. Alan continued, even under neural control. We keep breaking free. The resistance had been sharing information about triggering emotional responses that could override alien conditioning. They taught people to remember traumatic events that generated enough anger to burn through the neural fog. They used physical pain and psychological stress to help humans break free from alien influence. Most importantly, they taught people that being angry was not wrong, but was actually the key to staying human. Helen received reports from resistance cells across human space showing that the pattern was accelerating. The aliens are getting desperate, Pete observed. Their timeline assumed complete compliance by now. Instead, they are facing growing resistance from a species that refuses to stay conquered. Helen replied, Linda discovered something in the alien files that changed everything they thought they knew about their situation. The Dominion is not just harvesting Earth, she told Alan. They are harvesting 17 worlds simultaneously. This is the largest operation they have ever attempted, Alan realized, and we are the only species fighting back. Linda felt hope for the first time in months as she understood what this meant. The other harvested worlds are watching what happens here, she said. If humans can beat the Dominion, it will inspire resistance everywhere. Tony's resistance cell had grown from 5 people to over 200 as word spread through the ruins of Chicago. People were learning to stay angry and to use that anger as a weapon against their oppressors. They made one mistake, Tony told the growing crowd of rebels. They thought they could turn humans into sheep. But humans are not sheep, the crowd responded with voices full of rage and determination. We are wolves, and it is time to hunt. The aliens made their greatest mistake on a cold Tuesday morning when they decided to make an example of human resistance. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Adams watched from her hiding place as Zephyrian soldiers dragged 20 captured humans into the center of what used to be Washington Park. The aliens had set up cameras to broadcast this event to every screen on Earth because they wanted all humans to see what happened to those who fought back. Sarah recognized her daughter Emma among the prisoners and felt something break inside her chest like a dam bursting under too much pressure. Emma was only 16, but she had been caught distributing resistance messages to other students at the underground school. The aliens lined up the prisoners and activated devices that would slowly drain the life from their bodies while keeping them conscious until the end. Sarah tried to move forward, but her fellow resistance fighters held her back because charging into the open would only get her killed. We cannot save them, whispered Commander Jake Peters. But we can make them pay for this. Sarah watched her daughter's face on the giant screens as the alien devices began their work, and Emma looked directly into the camera. Remember who you are, Emma shouted with her last breath. Remember you are human. The words echoed across the silent city, and something changed in the air like electricity. Before a storm, Sarah felt rage unlike anything she had ever experienced flow through her body and burn away every trace of alien influence around the city. Millions of humans heard those words and felt the same fire ignite in their minds. Neural dampening technology that had controlled Earth for months began failing as human anger reached levels the aliens had never imagined possible. Dr. Alan Mitchell was monitoring brain activity in the Resistance Medical Center when his equipment started showing readings that should have been impossible. The neurochemical response is off the charts, he called to Linda Carter, who was working at the next station. Human anger is producing compounds that actively interfere with the alien control systems. Linda looked at the data and realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The dampening technology was designed for species that could be made calm and logical, she said, but human rage is like acid eating through their programming. Across the city, people were waking up from months of artificial sleep and remembering who they were supposed to Bettany Garcia, felt the change sweep through his resistance cell as fighters who had been struggling against alien influence suddenly became fully alert. "The kids did it!" Kevin Park shouted as he monitored alien communications. Their execution backfired completely. Susan Wright was treating newly awakened humans who were experiencing withdrawal from the neural dampening like addicts coming off a powerful drug. "The anger is spreading faster than any virus," she reported. "It is jumping from person to person through pure emotional contact." Danny Rodriguez was preparing explosives when he noticed that his hands had stopped shaking for the first time in months. "I feel like myself again," he said with wonder. "Like I have been wearing a mask and finally took it off." Sarah Adams stood up in the park where her daughter had died and let out a scream of rage that carried across the entire city. Sound was picked up by every microphone and broadcast on every alien-controlled channel as humans throughout the world heard it. The scream became a battle cry as millions of people joined their voices together in one massive roar of defiance. Captain Helen Brooks received reports from across human space that the pattern was repeating on every world. Mars colony reports complete breakdown of neural control. Her communications officer announced, same from Europa Station and the asteroid mining facilities. Pete Johnson was coordinating with resistance cells that were emerging from hiding as their members regained full consciousness. "The aliens are pulling back to defensive positions," he reported. "They seem to be afraid of direct contact with angry humans." Helen realized that the aliens had made the same mistake that every bully makes when they underestimate their victim. "They thought fear would control us," she said, "but they just made us angry enough to fight back." Dr. Linda Carter discovered that human rage was not just breaking the neural control but actually enhancing human capabilities. The neurochemical response is improving reaction time and tactical thinking. She told Alan in amazement, "Angry humans are faster and smarter than controlled humans." Alan was studying the alien files when he found references to something called Berserker syndrome in species that had fought the Dominion. "Look at this," he said, pointing to reports from alien military scientists. "They have encountered emotional resistance before, but never at this scale or intensity." The files showed that most species could produce brief bursts of rage that temporarily overcame neural dampening, but humans were maintaining high levels of anger for hours and even days, while remaining tactical and organized. Tony Garcia was leading his expanded resistance force through the city when they encountered their first alien patrol since the awakening. Zephyrians had always moved with confidence and authority, but now they seemed nervous and uncertain. "They are afraid of us," Kevin observed as he watched the aliens retreat rather than engage. "Good," Tony replied. "They should be." Sarah Adams was teaching other humans how to channel their rage into effective combat techniques. "Anger without discipline is just noise," she told the growing crowd of volunteers. "But anger with purpose is the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy." The humans began developing new fighting styles that used their emotional intensity as a tactical advantage. They moved with unpredictable patterns that confused alien targeting systems designed for logical opponents. Engineer Mike Thompson was in his workshop turning alien technology against its creators. "Their own power cores can be overloaded if you bypass the safety systems," he explained to other engineers. "The aliens never thought anyone would be crazy enough to do this. But humans were exactly crazy enough to take risks that horrified their logical enemies." Helen Brooks was preparing for the largest human counterattack in the war when her sensors detected massive alien reinforcements arriving. "Dominion battle fleet entering the solar system," her tactical officer reported. "They are bringing everything they have." Helen looked at the tactical display showing hundreds of alien warships moving toward Earth. "Then we will show them what happens when you make humans angry enough to stop caring about the odds." The aliens had turned a simple harvest operation into a war against the most dangerous species they had Ever-encountered humans who had been cattle 6 months ago were now predators hunting their former masters. Revolution had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Carol Stevens commanded the rebuilt human fleet from a hidden base inside Europa's ice caves where no alien scanner could detect them. Ships were a mix of military vessels that had escaped the initial invasion and civilian craft that volunteers had turned into weapons of war, Dominion fleet positions confirmed, reported her intelligence officer as data flowed in from resistance cells throughout the solar system. They have divided their forces to protect multiple facilities, which means they are afraid of human tactics. Carol studied the tactical display and smiled grimly, because fear was exactly what humans needed their enemies to feel. The aliens had controlled the galaxy for millennia by being methodical and predictable. But humans thrived on chaos and improvisation. All ships prepare for Operation Payback, she announced over the fleet communications. Remember what they did to our families and our world. Captain Maria Rodriguez was preparing her ship the UE Genet's Vengeance for the most dangerous mission any human had ever attempted. Her crew would board an alien command vessel and capture it intact while the enemy was still alive and fighting. The aliens have never faced boarding action from an angry species, she told her Marines. Their psychology cannot handle the kind of close combat that humans excel at. The Marines had trained for months learning how to use their emotional intensity to overwhelm alien crews. Psychologically, before the fighting even began, human war cries and aggressive displays triggered panic responses in aliens who had evolved to avoid conflict. Dr. Linda Carter was analyzing captured Dominion communications from her laboratory aboard Admiral Stevens' flagship. The alien leadership is experiencing something they call crisis paralysis, she reported to the command staff. They cannot understand how a primitive species is defeating their advanced technology. The intercepted messages showed growing panic among Dominion strategists, who were frantically trying to develop new tactics. They keep referring to human tactics as organized chaos and weaponized irrationality, Linda continued. Their entire military doctrine assumes enemies will behave logically, but humans in combat were anything but logical, as they took risks and made decisions that violated every principle of tactical science. Tony Garcia was leading urban warfare specialists through the ruins of major cities that had become battlegrounds. His fighters had learned to use destroyed buildings and rubble as advantages instead of obstacles. The aliens want clean battles with clear lines and predictable movements, he explained to new recruits. So we give them messy fights in places where their technology cannot help them. Human guerrilla tactics were driving the occupying forces to desperation as they lost control of urban areas. Kevin Park had become an expert at turning alien technology against itself by exploiting flaws that logical minds would never consider. Their systems are too perfect, he told other technical specialists. They have no redundancy for illogical inputs because they never expected anyone to try something stupid enough to work. Susan Wright was treating wounded fighters in field hospitals that moved constantly to avoid alien detection. Human pain tolerance is much higher than other species, she reported. Our people keep fighting with injuries that would disable any other race. The aliens were discovering that humans could function effectively even when badly hurt because evolution had made them tough enough to survive anything. Master Sergeant Julie Anderson was leading the assault team that would capture the Dominion command station orbiting Earth. Her soldiers had trained for zero-gravity combat using techniques that took advantage of human flexibility and adaptability. The aliens move like machines in space, she told her troops, but humans move like predators, and that gives us the advantage. The command station was heavily defended, but the aliens had never faced an enemy that could think in 3 dimensions while fighting. Helen Brooks was coordinating the space battle from her flagship when alien reinforcements arrived from outside the solar system. Dominion Reserve Fleet detected at the edge of sensor range. Her tactical officer reported, "They are bringing ships from other harvest operations." Helen realized this meant the aliens were pulling resources away from conquering other worlds. To deal with the human problem, "Good," she said. "That gives those other species a chance to resist." The humans had become such a threat that Dominion was abandoning their careful schedule to focus everything on Earth. Pete Johnson was analyzing battle data when he discovered something that changed their understanding of alien psychology. "Look at these communication patterns," he told Helen. "The aliens are not just tactically confused, they are emotionally traumatized." The intercepted signals showed that Dominion forces were experiencing something like shell shock from fighting humans. Species that had been bred for efficiency and logic could not handle the psychological pressure of facing enemies who fought with pure emotion. Dr. Allen Mitchell had been studying captured alien prisoners when he made a breakthrough discovery. "The Dominion species have eliminated emotions from their biology," he reported. "They literally cannot understand what drives human behavior." This explained why alien tactics kept failing against human resistance. Dominion had conquered the galaxy by facing species that thought like they did, but humans were fundamentally different. Admiral Stevens launched a coordinated attack on Dominion positions. Throughout the solar system, human ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on emotional responses to battlefield conditions. "All ships engage at will," she ordered. "Show them what happens when humans stop playing by their rules." Captain Rodriguez's boarding party hit the alien command ship like a storm of violence and noise. The aliens inside had never experienced anything like human Marines screaming battle cries while attacking with weapons designed for maximum psychological impact. "The crew is surrendering without significant resistance," Rodriguez reported. "They seem to be paralyzed by fear." Sergeant Anderson's assault on the command station succeeded beyond all expectations when the alien defenders simply stopped fighting. "They are not running or regrouping," she reported. "They are just sitting in corners like their minds have broken." Tony Garcia was coordinating urban battles when he received reports that alien forces were abandoning major cities. "They are pulling back to their ships," Kevin reported. "Looks like they want to get off the planet." But Admiral Stevens was not going to let them escape to threaten other worlds. "All fleet units move to intercept," she ordered. "No alien ship leaves this system." The hunters had become the hunted as Dominion forces found themselves trapped in a solar system full of angry humans. High Counselor Vextar was receiving reports from across the battlefield that made no sense according to everything that Dominion knew about warfare. "The humans are not following any recognizable tactical doctrine," his military advisor reported. "They keep doing things that should result in defeat but somehow achieve victory." Vextar realized that the Dominion had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that could not be conquered, because they refused to behave like conquered people should. The final battle began when High Counselor Vextar made the decision that sealed the fate of the Dominion forever. Standing on the bridge of his massive command ship above Earth, he activated the planet killer weapons that would destroy the world. Rather than let humans escape, "If we cannot harvest them, then no one can have them," he declared to his terrified officers. But Vextar had forgotten that humans never give up even when facing certain death. Admiral Carol Stevens received the alien ultimatum and felt the same cold rage that had driven humanity since the day their children died. "All ships prepare for final assault," she ordered, knowing that most of her people would not survive the next hour. "We will not let them destroy our world." General Patricia Hayes was leading the assault on the Dominion command station when the planet killer weapons began charging her. Soldiers had fought through impossible odds to reach the control center, and now they faced the ultimate test. "Alien leadership is in the central command chamber," reported Sergeant Anderson as explosions rocked the station. "Heavy resistance, but we are breaking through." Patricia knew that capturing the alien leaders alive was the only way to stop the weapons. That would kill everyone on Earth. Captain Maria Rodriguez was fighting her way through the enemy flagship when she encountered something that changed everything. Alien crew members were not just afraid, they were completely broken by months of fighting humans. They are begging us to stop, she reported to Admiral Stevens. Some of them are actually crying. Rodriguez realized that the Dominion species had never learned how to handle the kind of psychological pressure that humans created. In combat, these people have never felt real fear before, she told her Marines. They do not know how to function when they are terrified. Dr. Linda Carter was monitoring alien communications when she heard something that made her understand the true scope of their victory. The Dominion forces are not just retreating from Earth, she announced. They are abandoning harvest operations on all 17 worlds. The human resistance had become a galactic revolution as other enslaved species saw that the Dominion could be beaten. Tony Garcia was fighting through the streets of Washington when he received word that alien forces were surrendering en masse. They are laying down weapons and asking for protection, Kevin Park reported. Protection from what? Tony asked. From other humans, Kevin replied. They are more afraid of angry humans than they are of their own military discipline. The aliens had discovered that humans were the most terrifying species in the galaxy when they stopped pretending to be civilized. Patricia Hayes kicked down the door to the command chamber and found High Counselor Vextar cowering behind his control console. Being that had planned to enslave humanity was shaking with fear as human soldiers surrounded him. Please, Vextar said in a voice that trembled like a frightened child. We surrender completely to human authority. Patricia looked at the alien who had ordered the deaths of millions and felt her finger tighten on her weapon trigger, but she remembered what her daughter had taught her about the difference between justice and revenge. Shut down the planet killer, she ordered. Do it now, or we will let the angry civilians decide what to do with you. Vextar practically fell over himself complying with human demands as he realized that mercy from humans had to be earned. Admiral Stevens was accepting the surrender of the Dominion fleet when she received reports from across human space. All alien forces are laying down arms, her communications officer announced. They are requesting negotiations for complete withdrawal from human territory. But Stevens knew that withdrawal was not enough after what the aliens had done to Earth. Tell them we want the locations of all enslaved worlds and the release of every prisoner they have taken. Also tell them that humanity will be taking over Dominion territory to ensure this never happens again. Captain Rodriguez brought the captured alien leadership to Admiral Stevens and watched as beings who had ruled the galaxy begged for human mercy. We offer you everything, Vextar pleaded. Our technology, our territories, our complete submission to human authority. We only ask that you do not destroy us as we plan to destroy you. Admiral Stevens looked at the aliens who had tried to turn her species into cattle and felt the weight of galactic history. You will be tried for your crimes, she said. But humans are not monsters like you. We believe in justice, not revenge. Dr. Alan Mitchell was analyzing the complete Dominion database when he discovered the true scope of their crimes. 3,000 years of enslaving entire species. He reported, billions of individuals turned into property. The galaxy has been a prison and we just broke down the walls. Fleet Admiral Jake Martinez arrived from Earth with the terms of human demands. Dominion would cease all harvest operations immediately and release every enslaved individual. Former Dominion territory would become a federation, where all species had equal rights and representation. Most importantly, humans would oversee the transition to ensure that no species ever again faced what Earth had endured. But why would you help other species? Vextar asked in confusion. Own world is safe now. Jake looked at the alien leader with something approaching pity. Because that is what humans do, he said. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is why you could never conquer us. Dr. Linda Carter was appointed head of the new Galactic Research Council, where former enemies would work together. First project was developing technology that enhanced the natural abilities of different species instead of suppressing them. The Dominion was wrong about everything. She told the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, "Diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. Emotions and creativity are gifts, not weaknesses." Tony Garcia became the leader of the new galactic defense force that would ensure no species ever again faced conquest. "We learned something important during this war," he told his mixed unit of humans and liberated aliens. "The strongest species is not the one with the best weapons. It is the one that refuses to give up." High Counselor Vextar spent his remaining years working to undo the damage the Dominion had caused. "I understand now why humans terrified us so much," he said to Dr. Carter during one of their meetings. "You showed us what we had lost when we eliminated emotion from our society. You taught us that being logical is not the same as being wise." The galaxy was free for the first time in millennia, and it was humanity that had broken chains, but the greatest victory was not military but moral, as humans proved that mercy could be stronger than revenge. The species that had nearly been harvested became the guardians of galactic freedom, and in the end the aliens who had once planned to enslave humanity begged not for their lives but for the chance to learn what it meant to be truly alive.